On October 2nd, 2001, NBC debuted the hospital dramedy Scrubs. It came out just before the boom of hospital dramas like Grey's Anatomy and House, and while it was never the biggest show on TV, it has a dedicated legion of fans who love the show's incredible blend of side-splitting comedy, as well as moments that will make you absolutely cry your eyes out. I discovered the show when I was working at a retirement home, and my boss said that I reminded him of Zach Braff. I don't see the resemblance, but I checked out the show, and for the last 20 years, it's been my favorite show of all time. My name is Matt Kelly of Geekscape, and let's celebrate the debut of the best show ever made by counting down the 10 Scrubs moments that will always make you cry. But first, hit subscribe on our channel for more weekly pop culture videos every Tuesday and Friday, and donate to our Patreon for bonus podcasts and early access to the videos. Now, before we start the countdown, consider the rest of this video one gigantic spoiler alert. Number 10, Carla says goodbye to Laverne. Season 6, Episode 15, My Long Goodbye. A brief honorable mention to episode 14 of season 6 called My No Good Reason. Throughout the episode, Dr. Cox continuously harasses Laverne for believing in God while working in a building so full of terrible things. Eventually, Laverne cracks and gives Cox an earful about how without her faith, she wouldn't be able to even get out of bed.
If that's the way you choose to see the world, then so be it. But don't you dare try to take this away from me. I've been coming in here every day for 24 years, watching children die and seeing good people suffer. And if I quit believing that there was a bigger plan behind all this, well, I just wouldn't be able to show up tomorrow. So just stop it.
The following day, Laverne gets in a car accident and is left in a coma, slowly going brain dead. While her speech in My No Good Reason will definitely get the waterworks started, it's the following episode when you watch Carla in denial of losing her coworker and friend. Carla is followed by Laverne's spirit, pushing her to say goodbye before it's too late. Carla walks into the room and gives a truly amazing speech to her dying friend about how important Laverne was to her. Just as she finishes, Laverne passes away, and the spirit that Carla sees throughout the episode disappears. It's a truly heartbreaking moment and beautifully acted by Judy Reyes. Honestly, the only reason this isn't ranked higher is that a few episodes later, Alma Wright returned to play Nurse Shirley, who JD called Laverne again, which kind of took away from what made this moment so special. Number 9, Kelso Can't Fake a Smile. Season 5, Episode 4, My Jiggly Ball. At the start of the show, Dr. Kelso was the ultimate villain, constantly berating his doctors and sucking up to rich patients while letting poor patients continue to get sicker and sicker. The show did an amazing job of showing more of what makes Kelso the way he is, and it hits a fever pitch in the episode My Jiggly Ball. No matter what happens in the hospital, when Kelso leaves at the end of the day, he puts on a big smile and whistles his way to the car, making everyone believe that he doesn't care about anyone and that the job is simply a big paycheck for him. Kelso indirectly allows for a beloved patient at Sacred Heart to die when he lets a wealthier patient get ahead of him in a life-saving study. However, this choice allows for the prenatal center at the hospital to be reopened with the donations from the wealthy patient. However, as Kelso leaves the hospital that night, he's unable to smile and only forces out a weak whistle when he sees other doctors walking towards him, showing the true weight of the decisions that he has to make on a regular basis. Number 8, Waiting for My Real Life to Begin. Season 2, Episode 13, My Philosophy. Scrubs is known for having one of the best sitcom musical episodes, but 4 years earlier, they introduced one of the most heartbreaking musical moments of any television show. In the episode, we're introduced to Elaine, who's at the hospital due to her faulty heart. Having already faced her mortality, she tells JD and Dr. Cox that she hopes death will be like an elegant, flashy Broadway musical. At the end of the episode, as she dies, JD fantasizes that she gets her wish, and she and the entire hospital sing a beautiful rendition of Colin Hay's song, Waiting for My Real Life to Begin. As Elaine holds out the last note, we hear the sound of her heart monitor flatlining as Cox throws the defibrillators aside, having lost her. Number 7, Miss Wilkes forces JD and Cox to face the 5 stages of death. Season 5, Episode 12, My Cabbage, and Episode 13, My 5 Stages. In Season 5, Scrubs did something a little different by having a singular patient, Mrs. Wilk, be in the background of basically every episode. In Episode 12, it looks like Mrs. Wilk is finally ready to be discharged. Early in the episode, Kelso does an amazing job breaking down how quickly a disease can spread and cause infection.
Infection can start with a simple sneeze. And then a handshake. Perhaps an accidental collision. Then a simple touch on the shoulder. And just like that, you have a patient in trouble.
The namesake of this episode comes from JD's favorite intern, Cabbage, who is extremely bad at his job. As he leaves, he thanks Mrs. Wilkes for being so nice to him and unwillingly gives her an infection at the end of the episode, leading to the next episode, My 5 Stages. Right out the gate, My 5 Stages will get you crying as JD and Cox, in an effort to make Mrs. Wilkes' last days be as happy as possible, recreate a beach scene on the rooftop so she can feel the sand between her toes one last time. On the roof, she gives an empowering speech about how she was never afraid of death until that moment.
You know, I've never really been afraid of death. I used it as a motivator. When you know there's an end, it forces you to live. It forced me in the 8th grade to ask Peter Bucciarelli to take me to the sock hop. It made me dare to travel the world. It made me who I am. Still, now that I'm actually staring in the eye, why am I so scared?
The rest of the episode is full of emotional beats as JD and Cox try to fight the 5 stages of death, but nothing hits quite as hard as that beautiful speech on the roof of the hospital. Number 6, Kevin Casey can't stop washing his hands. Season 3, Episode 12, My Catalyst. Scrubs creator Bill Lawrence got his big break in 1996 when he co-created the show Spin City starring Michael J. Fox. When Fox left the show in 2000 due to complications from Parkinson's disease, Lawrence also left the show and began the early stages of creating Scrubs. By season 3 of Scrubs, Fox returned to television for 2 episodes to play Dr. Kevin Casey, who has severe obsessive-compulsive disorder. Despite his OCD, he is an incredible doctor and surgeon that wows the employees of Sacred Heart while unknowingly making them extremely jealous towards him. That is until JD catches him having a breakdown. He's unable to stop washing his hands, and the monologue is impossible to listen to and not imagine that Michael J. Fox is talking about his own struggles with Parkinson's disease.
I'm trying to get used to this place, and I'm stressed and I'm fried. And I just want to go home. But here's the punchline. Even though my last surgery was 2 hours ago, I can't stop washing my damn hands. Ah!
I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Look, this is a weak moment. Nobody's supposed to see this.
It's a truly heartbreaking moment and a prime example of how amazing Michael J. Fox is as an actor. Number 5, Dr. Cox falls into depression. Season 5, Episode 20, My Lunch, and Episode 21, My Fallen Idol. In Episode 20, My Lunch, there are 3 patients in need of transplant organs. Meanwhile, reoccurring patient Jill Tracy keeps popping up and annoying Dr. Cox and JD. Finding her impossible to be around, they continue to push her away, only for her to die of a suspected drug overdose. This makes JD question how good of a doctor he is to not catch the signs of her depression, while Cox pulls some strings to get Jill's organs to the waiting transplant patients. However, the patients begin to worsen, and it's discovered that she died of rabies as opposed to the originally assumed overdose. Slowly each patient dies, and when the third and final patient, whom Cox was closest to, dies, Dr. Cox flips out in a way that we had previously never seen before. He finally turns and leaves the hospital, blaming himself for rushing the transplants. At the start of the next episode, My Fallen Idol, Cox arrives to work drunk, causing Kelso to tell the board that he has taken a leave of absence, while Carla organizes for people to come over his house in shifts and watch him. JD continues to have excuses to not be able to visit him. The episode is full of people giving touching speeches about how important Dr. Cox is to the hospital and ultimately how important he is to them. But it's when JD finally shows up that the waterworks start flowing. He tells Cox that he's proud of him and that his only goal is to be as good of a doctor as Cox is. it seems to significantly impact him as we hear Cox speak for the first time since he arrived to the hospital drunk. Episode 4, Turk and JD skip steak night. Season 8, Episode 2, My Last Words. As Turk and JD get ready to attend their yearly steak night, they encounter a terminally ill patient named George. Not wanting to leave George in the hands of an intern that unfortunately lacks empathy, they sit and talk to George and learn more about his life. The two friends try to bring comfort to George about the idea of dying. JD is honest and describes to George that he will eventually just fall asleep while his organs begin to fail, but he won't be feeling pain as he drifts off. George accepts this promised pain-free passing and slowly falls asleep, never to wake up again. This whole episode is just 20 minutes of ugly crying whenever I watch it, and truly highlights the fact that 8 years into this show, they were still able to address such heavy topics in a beautiful and unconventional way. Number 3, Where Do You Think We Are? Season 3, Episode 14, My Screw Up. In the world of Scrubs, this is one of the most beloved twists to any episode. Dr. Cox's best friend Ben arrives just in time for Perry's son's birthday. In previous seasons, Ben was diagnosed with leukemia, and Cox decides that Ben should get a checkup while he's at the hospital. He pushes it on JD, who is more concerned about another one of his patients. Later, JD lets Cox know that he lost his patient, and Perry says that the patient only died because JD is a bad doctor. Ben shows up and tells Perry that he's being way too hard on JD. Dr. Cox becomes obsessed with the idea that JD can't be trusted with his patients or they'll die, and spends most of the week at the hospital only talking to Ben and ignoring all of his coworkers. Finally, Cox gets to his son's birthday, and Ben stops him and tells him to please forgive himself. JD interrupts the conversation as Cox is talking about Ben taking photos of his son and asks the infamous question, "Where do you think we are?" It's at that point that Cox turns around and Ben is no longer there. They're revealed to be at Ben's funeral, and the twist is so well placed that very few people saw it coming. It's also the first time that Cox is shown truly emotional. I'm sure some people will be in the comments saying that this should have been number 1, but so much of it hinges on the twist that once you know it, the emotional punch is slightly less effective with each additional watch. Number 2, JD Lies in the Grass. Season 1, Episode 4, My Old Lady. The way I watched Scrubs for the first time was through Netflix, back when they only sent you discs in the mail. It was my freshman year of college, and the first disc for the first season had shown up. I was in my basement watching it, and I was enjoying the show, but it was on episode 4 that I realized that I was watching something special. The setup to the episode is based on the idea that 1 out of every 3 patients admitted into a hospital will ultimately die. We then follow the 3 patients, 1 with Turk, 1 with JD, and 1 with Elliot. Ultimately, at the end, all 3 patients die, which definitely hits an emotional note, but it's JD's story and his patient, Miss Tanner. Tanner decides that she's lived long enough at 74 years old and decides against getting dialysis. JD creates a list of all the things that he thinks Miss Tanner needs to do before she dies. But Miss Tanner flips the script on JD, asking how much of any of those things on his list has he done. She points out that he's probably too busy to even have a picnic for himself. After she passes, the episode ends with JD finally taking some time to just lie in the grass. Before we do our number 1 moment, here's a few moments that just missed the top 10.
You're going to be okay. That's what's going to happen. Everything's okay.
Thanks for everything, Ted. Sincerely. You're welcome, Trump.
Don't try to make this okay. This is not okay. This is the worst thing that's ever gonna happen to me in my entire life, and you're here to see it, so you need to find a way to handle it better. Because I get to handle it however I want.
Number 1, JD's Final Fantasy, Season 8, Episodes 18 and 19, my finale. For almost everything on this list, we've talked about Tears of Sadness. But on the final episode, because I will not recognize Season 9 as anything other than a spin-off series, it was Tears of Pure Joy. The episode takes place on JD's last day at Sacred Heart. In the closing moments of the final episode, JD finally gets to hear how Dr. Cox feels about him.
For the record, he was the best that ever came through this dump. John Doran was the first and only doctor I ever met who cared as much as I do. And you can forget about him being just an exceptional physician. Because the fact of the matter is, he's a damn exceptional person. That's why people gravitated to him. That's why I did. He was my friend.
Thank you, God. That was beautiful.
Oh, God, no.
Which will get a few tears coming out of your eyes, but it's when JD turns the corner and imagines the hallway filled with everyone who left an impact on his life. That's when you start to ugly cry. JD sees the faces of every patient he ever lost, former co-workers and ex-girlfriends. While the moment is full of zingers and references to past episodes, it's also a beautiful send-off to 8 years of storylines. Finally, JD gets outside and imagines what his life will be after this moment, including getting married, having a kid with Elliot, and growing old with his best friends. After almost a decade of absurd, over-the-top fantasies, the show ends on a realistic and attainable fantasy. It's a fitting end to the show. And as a viewer, you can't help but hope that for once, JD managed to fantasize his own future.